Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. Before we start, we always remember all of our teachers. So today, again, we're continuing with Hari Bhakti Vilas, and we're going to start the 9th Vilas today, which is the 9th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas. There are 20 chapters in Hari Bhakti Vilas. And the last one, the 8th chapter, was the end of the ritualistic external worship, the external worship of the deity of Lord Krishna. And we were using the Gopal mantra, the Kim Krishna Govinda Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha, 18-syllable Gopal mantra. And this type of worship that is in Hari Bhakti Vilas is taken from another book called Kramadipika. So there are many rituals in Hari Bhakti Vilas which are taken from Kramadipika. So the external worship of the deity and Purascharya, the Diksha ceremony, everything is coming from Kramadipika, which is an Nimbarka text. So we finished that. We finished off that. And at the end of worshipping Lord Krishna, we prayed for forgiveness for offenses. And now we're going to go to the next chapter, and we'll see what happens in the next chapter. What is the subject of the next chapter? So here we have chapter 9. And in the beginning of each chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he writes a verse, a sloka, and he praises Lord Chaitanya, who was the person, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, and he came and he ordered Sanatan Goswami, and later on with the help of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, to write Hari Bhakti Vilas as an encyclopedia of Vaishnava behavior and activities, to show people how to live a Vaishnava life. So the first verse here, text 1, may Sri Krishna Chaitanya, by whose mercy I immediately obtained the good fortune to honor Mahaprasada, right? Despite being a fallen soul, be pleased with me. So we always get, in the first verse, we get some idea of the subject matter of the chapter, in the first verse of the chapter. So here, because he said Mahaprasada, it means that we're going to learn more about Mahaprasad. Now, Mahaprasad, prasad, of course, the word prasad means mercy. And so anything which is the shesha or uchista, something which is a leftover from the Lord, which is offered to the Lord, and he doesn't fully use it, or he uses it for some time, and then it's not used by him anymore. Right? So like the cloth that we offer to the deity, or anything that we offer to the deity, or even foodstuffs we offer to the deity, or incense or lamps or whatever it is, whatever we offer to the deity, whatever we offer to Lord Krishna, right? We can also then take it after we offer it to him, then we can take it. So in the Usopanishad it says, Isavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatam jagate tena chaktena bunjita madgurakasisvidyanam. It says that everything inanimate and animate, means all the universe and also the souls, all belong to God. We are his property, and also this universe is his property. He created us all, he created everything, and therefore he owns everything and controls everything. He pervades everything and supports everything. So because of this, everything belongs to him. So when we offer something to God, we're actually not, it's his already, we're just simply offering it back to him, because we have love and devotion for him. And so after we offer it to him, after he can use it, then we take it and we can take his remnants, which is his mercy. His mercy on us is that we can use what he has provided for us, like that. So although he's provided these things for us, he's provided the land and the sky and the air and the water and and the foodstuffs and everything for us. So, but they all belong to him, so we should offer them back. And after we offer them to him, then they become his mercy, his special mercy on us, and we can accept them. So this is the meaning of Mahaprasad. The word Maha, of course, means great. The great mercy of God, Mahaprasad. Okay, so let's continue on. Text 2. Thereafter, one should sprinkle water that has been offered to the deity and kept in a conch shell to the assembled Vaishnavas and also upon one's head. this water has been transformed into nectar, right? The word for nectar in the sloka, I don't see exactly, but usually the word for nectar is amrita, which means elixir of life, the against death, against death, right? Amrita. Amrita means never dying, undying. So nectar. So we should take this water that has been used to bathe the deity, to offer to the deity. We have different waters that we offer to the deity. We offer padya to wash his feet. We offer arghya to wash his hands or to sprinkle over his head. We offer achamaniya to his mouth, for him to wash his mouth. And all of these different waters, we will order shnana water to bath water to wash his whole body. So the remnants of these waters that are left over are holy because they've come in contact with the Tirumeni or the Ananda Kalyana, the Divya Mangala Vigraha, the divine, auspicious form of the Lord. And therefore, they become also very sanctified and very sacred. So we should take these waters and sprinkle them on the heads of devotees, of other Vaishnavas, as a blessing to them. And we should also take some of that water and sprinkle on our own heads. I know every morning when I go to do my puja, when I go in the puja room, after I wake the deities and everything, then there's a big container of charanamrita from the day before, with water that has been used to wash the shalagrams and the deities on the day before. So what I do is I take that and I pour that on my garden. I take that and I give it to the plants in my garden. But before I do, I take some of it and I sprinkle it on top of my head. It's a type of bath also. It's considered a type of bath to purify the body. So sprinkle this on the head. Take the Mahaprasadam in the form of Charanamrita. And so even when we take Charanamrita, there are some prayers to say when we take Charanamrita, to pray to the Mahaprasadam or the Charanamrita of the Lord, right? So there's a very simple mantra. It'll be stated here coming up. It'll say, Akala Mrityuharanam Sarvada Vidashanam Shri Vishnu Parodakam Pitva Sirasadarayamiham. I sip this water, which is it destroys the rebirth and disease and everything, and I sip it, the water that has washed the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. I sip it and I put it on my head. So the normal method is you take some water 3 times in the palm of the hand, sip it through the bottom part of the hand, which is called the Brahmatirtha, where we sip Achamana from, and then we touch some onto the head. So thereafter, one should do that. Now we're going to get a Mahatmyam about doing that. Shankodaka Mahatmyam. It is the Mahatmyam of the glories of taking the water from the conch shell. So sometimes the water is there in the conch shell. In fact, in the establishment of the conch shell, there are some prayers and there are some pujas to perform, and we make the water holy in the conch shell. And there's a stand and there's a conch shell that we use for bathing the deity, where it's also another type of conch shell which we use for blowing and making an auspicious sound in puja. So 2 types of conch shells. So here we're talking about the bathing conch shell, which we use to bathe the Lord with, and it has some water in it, and then we can take the water and sprinkle on our heads. So the glories of the water which is in the conch shell. And this is coming from Skanda Purana in a conversation between Brahma and Narada. There are 9 types of devotional service to Lord Hari, as well as his remnants, food, water, sandalwood paste, incense, and water kept in a conch shell are capable of nullifying the sin of killing a Brahmana. Okay? So what he's saying here is that in what Brahma is saying here to Narada, that in Skanda Purana, he's saying that all these things are capable of getting rid of our sins, even a very grave sin like killing a Brahmin, right? So what are they? Water kept in a conch shell. If we take that as on our heads, if we sip that or take that on our heads, like that. Incense, if we smell the incense which has been offered to the Lord. If we use the sandalwood paste which has been offered to the Lord. Any water or any foodstuffs that's been offered to the Lord. If we take the remnants. As well as all the different 9 types of devotional service, if we engage in those 9 types of devotional service. There are 2 lists of 9 types of devotional service. One comes from the Ramayana, one comes from the Bhagavatam. People are familiar mostly with the one coming from the Bhagavatam, spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, or Bhakti Prahlad. He says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Shmaranam Parasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. He says that these are the 9 forms of bhakti, 9 types of devotional service. Okay, so all of these things are able to purify us from that sin of killing the Brahmana. Continuing on with the glories of the conch and the water in the conch, right? In the same literature, which means Skanda Purana, it says, there is no need of making a separate endeavor to bathe in the Ganges for a person who offers water in a conch shell to Lord Keshava and then sprinkles it on his head. So if we do this, we take the water, the Charnamrita of Lord Krishna, and sprinkle it on our head from the conch shell, right? It's like taking bath in the Ganges. So no need to go and take bath in the Ganges, even if the Ganges is nearby, right? We can simply sprinkle this water on our head. It serves the same purpose. In other words, such a person receives the benefit of bathing in the Ganges. Text 5 and 6. One who sprinkles on his head the water that has been kept in a conch shell and sanctified by Lord Krishna's auspicious glance becomes free from the fear of pain, distress, grief, and hellish conditions of life. Inauspicious planets, ghosts, hobgoblins, snakes, and demons run away after seeing water that is kept in the conch shell being sprinkled on one's head. Text 7 and 8 continue. By sprinkling of one's head the water that is kept in a conch shell, which has been waved in circles above the head of Lord Hari during Arti, one is liberated by the Lord's mercy. All inauspicious elements flee from the temple complex if that water that is kept in the conch shell that has been offered to the Lord during Arti is sprinkled on the assembled devotees. So when we go to a temple, sometimes, especially in North India, when they do the Arti ceremony, they'll offer different lamps and they'll offer different things. And one thing is they'll take this conch shell with water in it, bathing conch shell, and they'll offer it in an Arti fashion, which means clockwise, circular fashion. They'll offer it above the head of the deity. They'll point it above the head of the deity and they'll offer it in clockwise fashion. So they'll usually do this 3 times. They'll do 3 times because we bathe Lord minimum 3 times with water when we do the bathing. So this is a type of mental bathing that we perform during the Arti ceremony. Then after we have taken that water, which has been consecrated by offering it to the Lord's head like that, or over the Lord's body, like that. Then we take that water and we throw it. The pujari will throw it and he'll put it on the heads of all the assembled devotees, and he'll take some on his own head also, like that. So all auspicious elements free from the temple complex when that water which is kept in the conch shell is offered during Arati, sprinkled on the head of the assembled devotees. So continuing on text 9, O foremost sage, all kinds of opulence go on increasing at the place where the water that washed where there is water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. So normally that's in the temple or in the house in the puja room in the house. A little later in the same literature, which means Skanda Purana, right? One sprinkles water on his head that has been offered to one who does that, who sprinkles water on his head that has been offered to Lord Hari, obtains the benefit of performing 100,000 sacrifices, including the ritualistic baths which are taken at the conclusion. Okay, so here it's specifically said in the Sanskrit, avabrita shnana. So this avabrita shnana is a particular bath that you do. There's different types of ritualistic bath that are done. The first type of ritualistic bath is done before you go and you perform any ritual or any puja, any worship of the Lord. You go and you make sure that you are clean. So you go and you take a bath. So first of all, there's different types of baths which we discussed before in the morning section of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, morning duties section. And so there's different types of baths, but this ritualistic bath involves not just water, but it also involves It also involves mantras and different things. So the ritualistic bath is taken up before you do worship. Then, if there's a festival, or if there's a sacrifice, or there's a particular type of ceremony, right, one should take a bath also after the ceremony to conclude the vow or to conclude the ceremony, the vrata. That is called an avabrita shnan, avabrita bath, right? So this here it's talking about avabrita bath, which is at the end of a ceremony, and one has taken a sankalpa, one's taken a vow to finish that ceremony up until the end of the bath. After the bath, and that's the finish of the ceremony. So that's the end, like that. So when one takes that avabrita bath, after that one attains all the fruits of performing the particular vow or the particular ceremony. This is the end of a person's vow or sankalpa, called the avabrita. Okay, so here we have text continuing on in text 11. Lord Shiva, in the same literature, Skanda Purana, he says, there is no doubt that the water that washed Lord Hari's lotus feet and the water that was offered to him in the conch shell is capable of purifying a very sinful person who is engaged in killing 10,000 living beings. The next verse, coming from Brihad Vishnu Purana, from the Vishnu Purana, says, water mixed with tulsi that has been glanced over by Lord Keshava, and especially water that was used to bathe the Shalagram Shila, is more sanctified than the water of all the holy places of pilgrimage and more purifying than the performance of hundreds of sacrifices, because it destroys all sinful reactions. So here we have Ata Tirtha Dharnam, drinking the water, and that water can be called different things. Sometimes people call it Charanamrita. Charana means foot. Amrita means nectar, means the nectar of the feet, of washing the feet, right? But here, it's simply called Tirtha. And in South India also, the people will say Tirtha. You want to take Tirtha. Are you going to take Tirtha? Tirtha is Charanamrita. Okay, so some people say Charanamrita, some people say Tirtha. Here it's called Tirtha. Tirtha Dharana means taking the Tirtha, sipping it and putting it on your head. So here it says, first one should offer the water to the assembled devotees and then drink it and sprinkle it on one's head after offering obeisances to it. Okay, so now there's a little bit of a difference in understanding here. Normally, the normal situation is that the archaka, the person who's the pujari, takes first. He takes the charanamrita first, and then he offers it to others, like that. But here it seems to be saying that you offer first to the assembled devotees, and then afterwards drink yourself. You take yourself. That can be done also in that way. Okay, so then sprinkle it on your head afterwards, after offering obeisances to it. He's saying after offering obeisances to it. So offer pranams, take the tirtha and sip it and sprinkle some on your head. So then it says the mantras to be chanted at this time have already been described in the section dealing with one's morning bath. Now some particular rules are described. Okay, so here's some mantras. It's also said, the mantras are Om Charanam Pavitram Vititam Puranam Yena Putas Tarati Duskritani Tena Pavitrena Shudhena Puta Apipapmanam Aratim Tarim Lokasya Dvaram Acharet Pavitram Jyotishpat Vibrajamanam Mahas Tad Amritasya Dhara Bahuda Dohamanam Charanam Loke Suritam Dadhatu. Okay, and then it says iti. So iti means that the thing that came before it has to be chanted. So these are some mantras to chant when taking Charanamrita. The glories of the Lord's Charanamrita have been widely known since time immemorial. People become purified by drinking Charanamrita, and they can cross beyond the ocean of material existence simply by touching it to their head. Charanamrita is like a gateway to heaven and the Vaishnava heaven, Sri Vaikuntham or Golokam, right? And it is fully transcendental, pure, worshipable, and glorious. One should always honor Charanamrita. May Charanamrita always be honored in this world, just like the nectar of heaven. Imam mantram. Okay, so one should drink Charanamrita while chanting this mantra, for it completely removes the bad influence of inauspicious planets. One should sprinkle Charanamrita on his body and on the body of his son, friend, wife, and other relatives. It's also stated sinful reactions that were accumulated because of killing millions of living entities can at once be nullified by drinking Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita. One should be very careful not to spill even one drop of Charanamrita on the floor, because to do so is very offensive. Okay, so how do we do this practically? Is that the cloth, when people are wearing, when people go to the temple, they're wearing, sometimes they're wearing dhotis and saris, they're wearing these Indian clothes. So if you're wearing a dhoti, you take part of the front part of the dhoti and you hold it in your hand, in your left hand, put your right hand on top, and then take the Charanamrita and sip. Or you take the Charanamrita in your hand and sip, and after sipping and putting a little on your head, then you turn your hand upside down, and the palm of your hand, you press on the dhoti to absorb any drops that are left, so that no drops will fall on the floor. Because if the drop falls on the floor or falls on your feet, it's considered very offensive, because Charanamrita is, and the same thing with prasadam. If we drop it on the floor, it's considered to be very offensive. So we try not to commit this offense of dropping the Charanamrita or a thing. Now, if you're wearing a sari, you can do the same thing. If you're not wearing a sari or not wearing a dhoti, then this is why people carry handkerchiefs around with you. You can take a handkerchief, a fresh handkerchief out of your pocket. You can place it on your left hand. Place your right hand on top of it. Take Charanamrita like that, and then after sprinkling water on your head, you can pat dry your hand like that, and that way you won't spill any Charanamrita on the floor. The other thing is, it's very interesting. After taking Charanamrita, one is not supposed to wash the hand, but I know that in many temples, they have a type of Charanamrita where they mix Panchamrita. They mix ghee and honey and sugar and yogurt and milk, which are all items that they've used to bathe the deity in. And after they've bathed the deity in that, they give that out as Charanamrita or Tirtha. So it's called Panchamrita Tirtha or Panchamrita Charanamrita. So that type of Charanamrita, which is sticky, right? People want to wash their hands afterwards. So it's just practical to wash your hands after that. But normally when we take Charanamrita, which is just plain water, we don't wash the hands, because we consider it to be sinful to wash the hands, right? Because the hand is purified by the Charanamrita. You don't need to purify it anymore. Like that. Somebody may argue, well, you touched the hand to your mouth, but even then, the Charanamrita is considered to be so pure, it purifies your hand. So anyhow, there's some different groups of Vaishnavas have slightly different customs on this point. But here it's said that the most important thing mentioned in here is that we shouldn't drop any of the Charanamrita on the ground or on the floor or on our feet. So we should definitely try to dry the hand afterwards, like that. Some people, what they do is they dry the hand on the hair, on the head, on the top of the head. Okay, that's possible. That can be done. Definitely, if we want to put Charanamrita on the head, it's not sinful. It's like putting Krishna on our head. Charanamrita is the prasadam of the Lord. The prasadam of the Lord is non-different from the Lord, and therefore touching him to our head is definitely a good thing to do. Okay, so continuing on with text 19. Ata Shri Charanodaka. Charanodaka. Udaka means water. There are many words for water in. Apa is a word for water. Jala is a word for water. Tirtha is a word for water. Udaka is a word for water. So here we have the word udaka. So Charanodaka is Charana Udaka. It's foot water that's washed the foot, right? So the glories of drinking the water that washed the lotus feet of the Lord. And this is coming from a conversation between Gautama and King Ambarisha in the Padma Purana. this glorification of the Charanamrita. O Ambarish, offer your obeisances to and take the dust from the feet of the person who drinks the water that has bathed Lord Hari. Okay, so even the person who has drunk the Charanamrita becomes purified, and therefore we should seek out that person and we should offer obeisances, we should offer our respects to that person and take the dust from his feet, like that. So, which is called Bhaktangri Renu, the Renu, or the dust of the Bhaktas, the Bhaktangri Renu, right? There's a great saint in South India, one of the Alwas, called Bhaktangri Renu. In Tamil, it's Tondaradi Puri. Tondar is the name of a devotee of Vishnu. Tondaradi means the lowest part, his feet, right? His feet, the feet of devotees. And Tondaradi Puri, Puri in Tamil means dust. So Tondaradi Puri or Bhaktangri Renu in Sanskrit. Okay, so continuing on, text 20. In the conversation between Devahuti and Vikundala found in Padma Purana, there's the following verse. One who drinks the water that bathed the Shalagam Shila every day need not bother to drink the 5 products received from the cow, namely milk, yogurt, ghee, cow dung, and cow urine. For even if they did so for thousands of times, that merit would have already been achieved by him, by the person who drinks the Charanamrita of the Shalagam Shila. So, why do we take this Panchagavya, these 5 products of the cow, the milk, yogurt, ghee, cow dung, and cow urine? When we mix those together in a certain proportion, right? There's a ceremony to make that into that is given out as achmana in different ceremonies. In different ceremonies, the person who is performing the ceremony, the person who is the yajamana, he will also be following that. He will also be asked to sip Panchagavya. So, for instance, we have this in Vaishnava Diksha or in some other ceremonies, we will have making of Panchagavya, these 5 products of the cow, and everybody will sip for purification these 5 products. In the beginning of initiation, the Guru sips Panchagavya, he gives the disciple Panchagavya to sip. This is very, very, very common. Okay, so here it said, instead of sipping the Panchagavya, all you need to do is take the Charanamrita of Shalagam. It's the same thing. Even if you tried to purify yourself thousands of times by sipping thousands of times Panchagavya, it wouldn't be equal to just taking one time Charanamrita from the Shalagam. Very good. So continuing on, it says, there is no need to visit thousands of millions of holy places of pilgrimage for a person who regularly drinks the sanctified water, Charanamrita, that has bathed the Shalagam Shila. And continuing, just by respectfully drinking a drop of water that bathed the Shalagam Shila, one's fear of having to drink his mother's milk will vanish. In other words, a person does not have to experience birth again in this material world. So it's an interesting way that they've said it here. So if you drink the Charanamrita, if you drink the Tirtha of the deity, like that, then you never have to drink mother's milk again. When we were babies, we were all drinking the mother's milk. And so we never have to take birth again is the meaning of the verse. It's very nice the way they've put it here. So text 23, continuing on, it's also stated, those who regularly drink the water that washed the lotus feet of the Shalagam Shila have already burned to ashes the miseries caused by suffering in hell and remaining within the womb. The next verse says, it's a conversation between Yama, and Dhumraketu, found in Padma Purana. One who drinks the water that bathed the Shalagam Shila is free from all kinds of simple reactions and thus traverses the path to liberation. He goes to liberation. Text 25 and 26. Tataiva Pulasya Bhagirata Samvadi. Okay, so the conversation between Sage Bhagirata, and Sage Pulasya, from Padma Purana, and it says, O Bhagirata, it must be Pulasya speaking, listen carefully As I explained to you, the glories of the Lord's Charanamrita, Lord Hari's Charanamrita is more sanctified than all the holy places of pilgrimage, and it destroys the sinful reactions of killing millions of living entities. Simply by drinking Charanamrita and sprinkling a few drops on one's head, a devotee can please all the demigods. Know for certain that in Kali Yuga, that is the age of quarrel and discord, the Iron Age that we're in right now, drinking the Lord Hari's Charanamrita is the best atonement for all kinds of sinful activities. Text 27 and 28 say, the water of the river Saraswati purifies a person after 3 days. Right? So if you take bath for 3 days, take bath in 3 days in Saraswati, you'll be purified of your sins. If you take bath in the Narmada, the water of the Narmada purifies a person after 7 days. So 7 weeks. It says it's 7 weeks. Does it mean 7 weeks or 7 days? I'm not sure. Saptahena. You know, I'm going to disagree with him perhaps on this translation. I think it means 7 days. But anyway, 7 weeks. He says 7 weeks or 7 days. Anyway, after some time of taking bath in the Narmada, one becomes purified. The water of the Ganges, when you take bath, purifies one immediately. It's more pure. The water of the Yamuna purifies a person simply by seeing it. So the Yamuna, which is also a tributary, it also goes into the Ganges, right? The Yamuna River, which flows through Vrindavan, that water, just by seeing it, not even taking bath in it. So this is an interesting pramana here that we can quote to people, that we don't even have to take bath in the Yamuna. Darshanad eva yamunam. Darshanad eva yamunam, we can say to people. If somebody says to us, oh, let's go take bath in the Yamuna, we can say, Darshanad eva yamunam. Just by seeing the Yamuna, I'm becoming purified. Nice. Very nice. All these holy waters purify a person by seeing, bathing, and by glorifying. But in this age of Kali, right, the Kali Yuga, Lord Hari's Charanamrita or Tirtha purifies one by who simply remembers it. So if you want to be purified, all you have to do is remember the Charanamrita of the Lord. It's so powerful, right? We have to see the Yamuna to be purified. We have to bathe in the Ganges to be purified. What to speak of the Saraswati and the Narmada, we have to bathe for some time in those rivers to be purified, not just immediately. So pure is the Charanamrita of the Lord. Text 29 to 32, it's also said, drinking Lord Hari's Charanamrita is hundreds of thousands of times more beneficial than worshipping 10 million Shiva lingas every day. I don't know, I can't even conceive of worshipping 10 million Shiva lingas, right? And let alone every day. But drinking Charanamrita is more than that. It does not matter whether one is pure, impure, or sinful, or most sinful, right? This is a very interesting verse here, right? If he simply touches the Charanamrita of Lord Vishnu, he at once becomes purified. If the Charanamrita of Lord Hari is sprinkled on one's head, mouth, and body, at the time of death, he will not traverse the path to the abode of Yamaraj, even if he's committed millions of sins. People who never gave charity, performed sacrifice, or worshipped the demigods can attain the supreme destination simply by drinking the Lord's Charanamrita. So this is very common that at the time of death, people are given Charanamrita, given tulsi leaves, they're given these sacraments. At Antima Shmriti, at the time of the Antima, at the time of death, to assure them to go to the Lord's abode and to be liberated. So here we go. The next verses say, one who regularly drinks Lord Hari's Charanamrita obtains the benefit of bathing in the holy place Pushkara. Pushkara is one of the holy places where they have the Kumbh Mela, where the drop of nectar from the pot of nectar, which was made from the churning of the ocean of milk, fell down. So they have a big mela there, a big festival there. So Pushkar is a holy place, right? So he gets the benefit of bathing at Pushkar. Such a person need not bathe at Pushkar in the month of Kartik, when the star Kritika is visible, right? So if you take Charanamrita, otherwise there's a system where you go to Pushkar and there's a big festival in Kartik month, which is October, November, under the star Kritika. So the star Kritika in Kartik will be on the full moon day of Kartik. The full moon day of Kartik, the full moon day of every month, right? The star which appears, which governs that particular day, right, appears on the star that governs that particular month appears on the full moon day of the month, right? So when the star Kritika is visible, so it means full moon day of Kartik. Kartik Purnima, you should go to Pushkar and take a bath. But if not, you can simply take Chanamrita. What will he gain by bathing at the sacred place known as Pindaraka, which is situated at modern-day Ujjain in the month of Vaishakha? Will a person who regularly drinks the Lord's Charamrita achieve more benefit by bathing at Prayag, which is the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna, right? And some people say Saraswati also. It's a confluence. It's a Triveni, a mixture of three different rivers. Will a person who regularly drinks the Lord's Charamrita achieve more merit by bathing at Prayag in the month of Marg? The fact is, Marg is a cold month, right, in the winter. So the fact is, he already receives the merit of bathing at Prayag every day. One who drinks the water that washed the Lord Hari's lotus feet does not need to bathe in the Yamuna on the day of the Uttana Dwadasi. So also, one has to take the bath on the Uttana Dwadasi, right? Uttana Dwadasi is the end of Chaturmasya, right? So when just right now we're in the beginning of Chaturmasya, but after 4 months at the end, there's a Uttana Dwadasi when the Lord wakes up. So one should take a bath at that time in the Yamuna, and maybe in the Ganges also. What additional, or any holy river that's close by, right? In South India, that would be the Kaveri or other rivers. What additional benefit will one who regularly drinks Lord Vishnu's Charamrita achieve by relinquishing his body on the banks of the Ganges at Kashi? So many people, they go to Kashi or Benares or Varanasi, and they want to pass away, they want to die in that holy city, because they know if they die in the holy city, right, their body will be burned and the ashes will be put in the Ganges there. They'll attain liberation. And even at the time of death, Lord Shiva will come. There's a Manikarnika Ghat. There's a particular ghat, a bathing place. There's many bathing places along the river Ganges in Varanasi. And one of them is called Manikarnika Ghat. And this place, Lord Shiva, he comes and he will give you the Ramataraka mantra in your ear when you're dying in Varanasi. He will tell you, Sri Rama, Jaya Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama. And you will attain liberation. Because Lord Shiva is always chanting Lord Rama's name. Rama, 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 Iti, Rame, Rame, Manorame, Sahasranama, Tatulyan, Rama, Nama, Varana. And he says to his wife, he says to Parvati asks him, Keo Painena, Laguna, Vishnu Nama Sahasradam. She asks him a question, what are you always meditating upon? And he says, I'm always chanting Rama, Rama, Rama. Okay, so in other words, Lord Vishnu's Charamrita awards all these types of benefits. All these types of benefits which are described in text 38 to 39. Just by taking the Charamrita of the Lord. It's also said, a foolish person who rejects or neglects the Lord's Charamrita, Lord Vishnu's Charamrita, so this is the opposite. So we heard all the glories and the glorification of taking Charamrita and sprinkling it on your head and sipping it. Here, if you reject it or neglect it, Lord Vishnu's Charamrita, and instead travels to many holy places of pilgrimage, certainly discards invaluable jewels to be attached to a chunk of clay, a lump of clay. Saintly persons consider even a drop of Charamrita, a single drop, to be equal to all the sacred water at Kurukshetra. So remember, even in the Bhagavatam, there's a story of that Krishna and the Yadus. They all went to Kurukshetra, which is a holy place. Although they had a war there, it's a holy place. It's called Dharmakshetra, a religious place. right? They went there for an eclipse. There was a solar eclipse, and they went there and they bathed in the holy waters there. So, but you don't have to do that. Even if you just take one drop of Charnamrita, it's equal to all the sacred water in Kurukshetra. So continuing on, it says, the house in which Lord Hari's Charnamrita is always present will remain filled with inexhaustible opulence. So that means in your house, you should have your puja room and you should worship Lord Krishna. And the Charnamrita from worshiping Lord Krishna should be available. Anybody who visits your house, you give them the Charnamrita from your puja room, like that. And your house will always be filled with inexhaustible opulence. The inhabitants of that house will obtain the merit of offering oblations to the forefathers at Gaia. Okay, so there are different ceremonies that we perform after the death of a person to satisfy the forefathers, the Pitris in Pitri Loka. And one of the most important ones is called the Gaya Shraddha. And if you want to know more about how to perform Gaya Shraddha, usually you have to go to the place in India called Gaya, where they have footprints of Lord Vishnu. It's a temple of the footprints of Lord Vishnu, and you offer the Shraddha at the Gaya temple. And it's a particular type of Shraddha. It's one of the most important Shraddhas that you can do for a family member who has passed away. Like that. That is the Gaya Shraddha. But you don't have to do that if you simply keep Charnamrita in your house. Simply keep Charnamrita in your house. It's equal to that. The Gaya Shraddha. Still, you can still go to the Gaya Shraddha if you want to do that. The drinking of Lord Hari's Charnamrita amounts to offering oblations to the forefathers, removing the fear of demons, ghosts, and evil spirits, and destroys diseases, obstacles, and the fear of poisonous snakes and wild animals. Okay. So sometimes people do this also. They sprinkle Charnamrita if they're afraid of some sort of ghosts or evil spirits in the place, or to just purify the place. Sprinkling Charnamrita is the way to do it, along with chanting the holy name, and there are many other things that can be done. So continuing on, it says here, planetary positions cannot harm such a person who regularly drinks Charnamrita, and thieves and rogues cannot plunder him. So we all know that there are different planets, and according to the science of Jyotisha or astrology, Vedic astrology, different planets may have different effects on us, like that. So these planetary positions cannot have any effect on us, bad effect on us, if we simply drink Charnamrita. Neither will we be attacked by rogues and thieves, right? For such a person, there is no need to visit holy places or take darshan of demigods and sages. Lord Keshava, Brahma, Shiva, and Surya are always pleased with a person whose head is adorned with the water that has washed the lotus feet of the Shalagam Shila. A person who recites the glories of Charnamrita in front of Lord Keshava will certainly attain Vaikuntha. So probably what I should have done is I should have read this whole section sitting in my puja room in front of my deities, right? But of course, Krishna is everywhere. So we're now speaking the Mahatmyam or the glories of Charnamrita. So we hope that Lord Krishna hears that we're chanting the glories of Charnamrita, and we're going to attain Vaikuntha from that. Nice. Just by chanting, just by speaking the glories of Charnamrita. Not even by taking Charnamrita, just by remembering it, just by chanting its glories, Charnamrita, we get the effect. Yeah. So Charnamrita is so powerful that we don't actually have to sip it and put it on our head. We only have to remember it, or we only have to glorify it by explaining about it, and we get the effect of taking it. Very good. So this is how great the Mahaprasadam, the great mercy of the Lord is. So now from Brahmanda Purana, there's a conversation between Brahma and Narada. It says, if a person is instructed to chant the Agamarshana mantra, so Agamarshana is a type of mantra that we chant in Sandhya Vandanam. We say, Suryascha Manyuscha Manyuparayascha Manyupitebhyaha Papebhyo Rakshantam Yadravya Papam Akarsham Manasavacha Hastabhyam Padyamodanena Shishnaratristadavarumbatu Yatim Shuduritam Mayi Idamahamamaviti Yonal Surya Jyotyom Chahomi Swaha in the morning. In the evening we say, Agnischama, Manjuschama, Nipadestamani, Pidebia, Pape, the Chantam Yadrati, Papa, that Anam Papa, Shamanasavacha, Hastabim, Padiamadan, Shisnova, Hastaravan, Putu, considered the Mayi, Yirmaham, Amit, Satya George Swaha, like that. And we also say in the noon, we say, Papurantu Privi, Privi, Puta, Parantamam, Parantu Brahmanas, Bram, Puda, Parantamam. And we sip water with this Agamarshana mantra. These Agamarshana mantras are to purify ourselves from sins committed, right? Normally in Sanyavandana we say, in the morning we say, from the sins I committed in the evening, since I did the last Sanyavandana. The sin, at noon we say, the sins I committed in the morning, between the morning Sanyavandana and now. And in the evening, we say the sins committed in the afternoon after I perform my noon Sanyavandana. So all the time we're continually sipping water and chanting these mantras to purify ourselves, to keep ourselves pure, so that we can worship the Lord properly in a pure state like that, right? So one who doesn't perform Sanyavandana, he doesn't remain pure at all times, and therefore he has to perform Sanyavandana to become pure. So the Agamarshana mantras are part of becoming pure during Sanyavandana. And therefore, so a person who is instructed to chant the Agamarshana mantras. So sometimes in some of the Shmriti Shastras, it'll say if you committed this sin, or if you did this thing, or if you touched this unholy thing, and you became contaminated in some way, you should say the Agamarshana mantras and sip the water. Sip the Agamarshana, the water purified by the Agamarshana mantras, or undergo some severe penance for atonement, like the Chandrayana fasting, where we fast for the whole month or whatever it is, right? He doesn't have to do those things. He should simply drink the Lord's Charanamrita to obtain the desired result. To obtain the desired result, which means to become completely purified, he can simply sip Charanamrita. There is no need to follow the above mentioned procedures. Okay, so now, even though this may be a pramana, right? This may be a sloka in the scriptures. Still, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do Sanyavandana. We should do Sanyavandana. We should do the Agamarshana prasana. Even though we also take the Charanamrita of the Lord. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's just glorifying. It's a way of glorifying the Lord's Charanamrita, saying it's so powerful that it can also do what the Agamarshana mantras do. Also, it can also do what undergoing severe penances can do. So continuing on, text 47 to 48, there's no question of contamination due to the birth of a child in one's house or death of a relative. These are the two times when we get what we call asocha, right? Or it's called titu in Tamil. So asocha means, in Sanskrit, means uncleanliness or ritual uncleanliness or contamination, ritual contamination. So when there's a birth or a death by in a relative, either in your family or a family which is related to you, sambandhis, we call them sambandhis, people who are related to you, then that causes us to also have some small form of contamination, right? For a person who drinks Charanamrita of the Lord or sprinkles it on his head, there's no question of that type of contamination, right? From birth or death in the family. Usually for death, it's like 10 days contamination, but it can vary also according to the caste of the person and according to the community. And the same thing for the birth of a child, 10 days. So even a sinful person who is given some Charanamrita at the time of death will attain the supreme destination. Once again, it's talking about giving Charanamrita to people who are dying at the time of death, antima. Simply by honoring Lord Hari's Charanamrita, people who eat meat, fish, and eggs, who drink alcohol, who engage in illicit sex, and who are naturally sinful, can at once become worshipable, not just freed from their sins. They become worshipable themselves just by taking Charanamrita, just by giving people Charanamrita. like that, even if they commit all these sinful activities like that, not only are they freed from the sinful activities, they become purified and pure enough to be worshipped themselves just by taking the Charanamrita. Charanamrita is so powerful spiritually. So, it's also said in text 50 and 51, a follower of strict vows, a person who has eaten a follower of strict vows, a person who has eaten tainted food offered by sinful people, or has drunk water given by them. If he drinks the Lord Hari's Charanamrita, will become purified. O follower of strict vows. So he's talking to somebody. There's a conversation going on here between Brahma and Narada in Brahmanda Purana. Right. So he's saying, probably Brahma is saying to Narada, O follower of strict vows, Narada, right? A person who has eaten tainted food, you've eaten contaminated food offered by sinful people, or has drunk even water which is given by them. If he drinks Lord Hari's Charanamrita, he will become purified. Lord Hari's Charanamrita is more sanctified than the 5 kinds of milk products. Remember, we talked about the 5 types of milk products is coming from the cow: milk, yogurt, ghee, cow urine, and cow dung, all mixed together. Is called panchagavya, and it's a purifying thing to be sipped. In some ceremonies like Diksha or whatever. Right? Tapta Kritsha, Mahakritsha, and Chandrayana Vrata, and Parakritsha. Okay, these Kritchas, different types of Kritsha, the Tapta Kritsha, the Mahakritsha, the Parakritsha. These are different types of tapas, or different types of atonement, the prayaschitta, that one can do, different austerities that one can do. The Tapta Kritsha involves, usually it involves Tapta Kritsha. Tapta means heat, right? So normally what it means is in the middle of the summer, somebody goes out and they build 4 fires, and they sit in the middle of, they put 4 fires around them in the 4 directions, and they sit in the middle of the 4 fires, and the 5th fire is the sun above them. So sometimes you see yogis in India, they'll do this. They'll go and they'll sit, make 4 fires, and they'll have the fire of the sun above them. So they're being heated on all sides by these 5 fires. Right? This is called Tapta Kritsha. Or it's also called Panchagni Vrata or something like that. Anyway, Mahakritsha means a great tapas, a great austerity. The Chandrayana Vrata is fasting according to the moon, the phase of the moon, which we discussed before, eating more going up to the full moon and less going up to the new moon. Parakritsha is para means the supreme or the greatest, even bigger austerity than the Mahakritsha. All of these different types of tapasya and or atonements for sins are given in the scriptures. So we don't have time to go into all of them exactly what they mean. Just by drinking Charanamrita, one's body becomes purified. So he doesn't have to do all of these other austerities. So 52 to 54 mentions, my dear son, when Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita is mixed with aguru, so that you get the Charanamrita of the Lord, which is in most cases just the water, the fragrant water. It's got tulsi leaves in it. It may have some rose water or some orange blossom water, some sort of fragrant water in it, mixed in it, like that. It also might have some of the Arghya Padya Nachmana water mixed in, which has some other herbs and spices. Okay. So that water, when it's mixed with aguru, which is the type of scent, right? Kumkum, camphor. Kumkum here could mean kumkum, or it could mean kumkum. It could also mean saffron. Saffron, okay? So we find camphor and sandalwood powder. It purifies even pure objects like that. Sometimes we find that in South India, there's a thing called Tirumanjana Podi or Astagandha. So there's 8 different ingredients that are made into a powder, right? Including camphor, including edible camphor, which is called Pachakapuram, right? And kumkum in the sense of saffron, aguru, sandalwood powder. All these things can be crushed together like that. A little bit can be put into the water, which is bathing the deity. right? It purifies even a pure object. So even things which are pure become even more pure when they're touched by this Charanamrita, which is offered to the Lord. When water that has been glanced upon by Lord Vishnu destroys all kinds of sinful reactions, then what can be said about his Charanamrita? So even water that has been seen by Lord Vishnu, even water that he's seen, right, becomes purified by his glance. So what to speak of? The water that's washed his lotus feet, right? Charanamrita, right? Or bathe the deity. O son, this is why, as a devotee of Lord Vishnu, I drink and touch to my head his Charanamrita every day. I understand the glories of Charanamrita. This is Brahma talking to Narada, right? So Narada is one of the sons of Brahma. So Brahma is saying, "Oh son," to Narada, I do this every day. I take Lord Hari's, Lord Vishnu's, Lord Krishna's Charanamrita every day, and because I understand the supreme glories of Charanamrita. It's good. So text 55 to 56, he continues on. He says, "You are my eldest son. Therefore, I have revealed this confidential secret to you. Do not disclose this fact to an unqualified person." So sometimes we read this in the scriptures, even Bhagavad Gita. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, this divine message of the Gita should not be given to people who are not devoted, who are not austere, who are not my followers, who are not my devotees, who are not surrendered unto me. You know, by drinking the Lord's Charanamrita every day and by touching it to your head, you can be liberated from the distress caused by birth, death, old age, and disease. Oh, my son, there's no doubt in this regard. Right. So once again, this is Brahma and Narada, right? Brahma speaking to Narada. Okay, was it Brahmanda Puran? Okay. Now, continuing on, we're going to hear from Vishnu Dharmotara. Vishnu Dharmotara, which we've got a lot of quotes here of Vishnu Dharmotara about different parts of worship, especially about the different flowers and different things. So here it's going to say, Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita is very sanctified. It destroys all sinful reactions. It's the most auspicious kind among all kinds of auspiciousness. It awards instant benefit. It removes all kinds of miseries. It dispels all types of bad dreams. It neutralizes all kinds of disturbances, and it cures all diseases. Okay, so I have personal experience of this. My teachers, my Pancharaja teachers, temple in Bangalore, Galayanjanaya Swami Devasthanam, people used to bring people who were afflicted by diseases, who were even people who were totally mad. They had to be restrained. They were completely crazy, like that. And what they would do is they would do different things. One of the things they would do is take a flower and take the Charanamrita and sprinkle it on the person. Completely sprinkle the person with Charanamrita. If possible, get them to drink Charanamrita, but completely, sprinkle them with kirtan like this. There were other things that they did too, like that. And this would have a very calming effect on the person, and a wonderful effect upon people who have diseases and things like that. So text 59 to 62. The sprinkling of Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita on one's head brings all disturbances to an end, checks all kinds of sinful activities, provides all kinds of auspiciousness and happiness, enables one to achieve the perfection of all desires, awards profit and fame, enhances one's religiosity, destroys all of one's enemies, awards all kinds of enjoyment, and gives one the benefit of visiting all the holy places of pilgrimage. Especially, this is important right now because we can't visit all the holy places right now because everything is locked down. So the benefit one obtains by bathing at Prayag, right? Prayag we talked about is the confluence, the Triveni of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati rivers at Prayag, at Benares, near Benares. Prabhash Chetra, which is also a holy place. Pushkara, Pritudaka, I'm not sure exactly where that is, can be achieved simply by drinking the Lord's Charanamrita. The merit one earns by visiting the Chakratirtha, right? There's a place called Chakratirtha, right? Gaya, holy place of the lotus feet of the Lord, right? The river Saraswati, and bathing in those holy places can be attained simply by drinking Lord Vishnu's Charamrita and touching it to the head. Now, further on in Skanda Purana, text 63 says, Lord Shiva, the Lord of the demigods, who sustained the Ganga, the Ganges came on his head, right? So what was the which emanated from the lotus feet of Lord Hari on his head, right? Certainly knows the glories of Charanamrita, right? Among all embodied souls, only he is completely free from all sins. So what it's saying here is, why do we consider Shiva to be a great devotee? Why is he considered a Mahajan? Why is he considered pure? Right? Why is Shiva considered so pure? Because in that story where the Trivikram avatar of Lord Vamana turned into Trivikram, we'll look at under Paramal, and his foot went up into the sky, right? After covering the complete material and spiritual worlds with two footsteps, well, his foot went up into the sky and it broke the covering of the universe. And from outside the universe, the water from the Viraja River or the Karandak Ocean, the holy water coming from the spiritual world came down and washed his lotus feet. And from his lotus feet, it came onto the head of Shiva. And then from there, it came to the earth as the Ganges River. Okay, so because Shiva has this water from the foot of Vishnu coming onto his head, that is what makes Shiva pure. So all the purity that we talk about, Lord Shiva is a great personality, he's a great Mahajan, he's so pure and everything like that, is because of this water coming onto his head. That's very important to know, like that. So sometimes people go to Benares, and in Benares there's a lot of people who worship Shiva. There's a lot of Shiva temples, there's the Ganges, and mostly people are into Shiva, like that. If you tell those people, how did Shiva why are you worshiping Shiva? How did Shiva become so auspicious? The word Shiva itself means auspicious. How did he become so auspicious? How did he become so pure? It's by the water coming from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu on his head. Among all embodied souls, only he is completely free from all sins. Text 64 to 67 continues on, says, simple reactions cannot touch a person who honors Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita and Mahaprasad. So the foodstuffs offered to the Lord, or the flowers or whatever, and the Charanamrita. All kinds of contamination flee from such a person. There is no doubt that if one who is suffering from hundreds of miseries and who is threatened by great danger thinks of Lord Hari's Charanamrita, just thinks about Lord Hari's Charanamrita, he will be freed from such awkward conditions. So once again, we don't have to sip Charanamrita or touch Charanamrita to our head. We just have to think of Charanamrita or see Charanamrita, like that, or speak the glories of Charanamrita. And Charanamrita is so purifying, it purifies us. Right. So why should those whose heads are always adorned with the Lord Hari's Charanamrita desire to visit millions of holy places of pilgrimage? Right? It's a rhetorical question. We don't need to. The answer is obvious. He doesn't have to. That person doesn't have to visit places of holy pilgrimage, because just by putting the Charanamrita on his head, it's considered that he's visited all those places. He has the benefit of visiting all those places. Drinking Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita is the greatest religious principle. It's the greatest religious principle. Okay, so now we have some what we call shastric hyperbole, because you'll see in the scriptures, you'll see this is the greatest, that is the greatest thing, this is the greatest mantra, this is the greatest vrata, this is the greatest mantra, holy name, whatever it is. So here it's saying that just to encourage us to show us how great Charanamrita is, he says, drinking Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita is the greatest religious principle, the foremost penance, and the most sanctified activity. So great is Charanamrita. Imagine so far, we're only up to 68 verses. We're 68 verses. It's all on Charanamrita, all Mahatmya of Charanamrita, glories of Charanamrita. In the conversation between Shiva and Parvati found in Skanda Purana, we have the following verses. By drinking water that washed the lotus feet of the deity of Lord Hari, all of one's sinful reactions are destroyed. So what more can be said of the glories of the Shalagram Shila's Charanamrita, right? So even washing the deity or washing the shalagram. Oh, dear one, Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita definitely destroys all reactions, even for the sin of killing a Brahmana. By drinking Lord Hari's Charanamrita at the time of death, one will disappoint the messengers of Yamaraj by attaining the abode of Lord Vishnu. So Yamaraj's messengers, even if they come, they will have no work to do because you will be taken Vishnu Lokam Sagachati. So you will go to Vishnu Loka or Goloka Vrindavan or Sri Vaikuntham, the abode of Krishna. So continuing on with text 70, right? The conversation between Shiva and his son Kartikeya, right? That is found in the section of the Skanda Purana, which describes the glories of Shalagam Shila. So he says here, O Kartikeya, Lord Shiva says, O Kartikeya, one who regularly drinks the Charanamrita of Shalagam Shila has conquered the formidable distress of living within the mother's womb. Continuing on, what is the need for a person to drink Panchagavya? Remember we were talking about Panchagavya, the 5 products received from the cow, namely milk, yogurt, ghee, cow dung, and cow urine, thousands of times if he regularly drinks the water that bathed the Shalagam Shila. Text 72. Is there any need to give charity, observe fasts, perform the Chandrayana fast, or visit holy places for the purpose of atonement after drinking Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita? And it's a rhetorical question, obviously. A person who does that doesn't have to do all those other fasts and atonements. Now, from the Brihad Naradiya Purana, in the story, the beginning of the story of Lubdaka, comes a verse. Simply by accepting Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita even once, one is considered to have bathed in all the holy places of pilgrimage. He becomes very dear to Lord Vishnu. And here is a verse which is often used by people when they sip Charanamrita, but here it's not mentioned here as actually a verse that you use for that, but you can use this verse. Akala Mityur Samanam, Sarva Vyadi Vinashanam, Sarva Drupa Pasanam Manam, Hari Parodakam Shubham. The most, it sounds very much like Akala Mityur Sarvadi Vinashanam, Shri Vishnu Paradakam Bitva Sirasakari Yameha, right? The most auspicious Charanamrita of Lord Hari destroys all kinds of diseases and other miseries, and it ensures that one avoids a premature death. At the end of that story, right, what the story was from, the story of Lubdaka in Brihad Naradiya Purana, at the end of that story, it says, after being purified of all sinful reactions simply by the touch of Lord Hari's Charanamrita, the hunter boarded an airplane and said, O sage, simply by honoring the Charanamrita that you gave me, I have attained the abode of Lord Vishnu. This was a hunter, person who was killing animals. Like that. Sinful person, right? Engaged in a simple profession. So then continuing on from Hari Bhakti Sudadaya says, simply by touching of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, the Ganges instantly became the deliverer of all those who remember her, just by thinking of the Ganges. Therefore, how can I properly glorify the greatness of Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita? You can't. You can't. It's unlimitedly great. The blazing fire of the threefold material miseries, which cannot be extinguished even by pouring all the water of the ocean on them. So imagine that the miseries in this material world of birth and death in samsara, right, are considered to be a blazing fire so great that even by pouring all the water of all the oceans of the world on them, you cannot extinguish that fire. Can be quickly extinguished just by a few drops of Charanamrita. What a wonderful description here. Water that washed the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is just like an amulet. An amulet is like a pendant that somebody wears, a type of a thing that somebody wears either on the arm or on the neck or on the wrist, right? Or on the head, around the neck. To ward off, to protect oneself or to ward off evil spirits and things like that. It's an amulet, right? So like an armor, even like a type of armor. the water that has washed the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is just like an amulet, which cannot be penetrated by any weapon. It is the means for extinguishing the fire of material existence. Therefore, one should sprinkle Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita on the upper part of the body above the navel, right? Above the navel is considered to be pure parts of the body, right? And then below the waist, below the navel, we don't put holy things. We don't touch holy things to different parts of our body below the waist. The demigods drink nectar once a month, but drinking Lord Hari's Charanamrita every day is considered to be drinking nectar daily, right? So this Amrita, which they churned the ocean of milk and they got the Amrita, the nectar of immortality, and the demigods drink this nectar of immortality and they stay young by doing this once a month. But by drinking the Charanamrita of Lord Hari every day, we're considered to be drinking that nectar of immortality every day. What to speak of this, even a person who sings the glories of Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita is freed from all types of fear. However, when one tries to evaluate on his own terms this invaluable jewel, right? Invaluable jewel of Charanamrita in the form of Charanamrita, he certainly incurs sin. So we can't even describe the glories of Charanamrita. And even if we try to limit the glories of Charanamrita, we incur a sin. It's a sin to even think that the glories of Charanamrita are limited. They're unlimited. And elsewhere it is said, by sprinkling Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita on their head and by drinking it, the members of all the Varnas and all the ashramas, right? Society is divided up into these 8 different groups, right? Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, Sannyasis, even ascetics, even sadhus, right? Holy people or renounced people attain perfection. All the members by drinking it and sprinkling it on their head of these different groups. Let the person who desires to neutralize all the reactions to sinful activities he had committed since birth drink the Shalagam Shila's Charanamrita, which nullifies all the sinful reactions. Continuing on, text 84, Inna Tejo Dravina Pancharatra, which is apparently a Pancharatric literature. I've never heard of it. Tejo Dravina. Lord Brahma has stated, O child, he's speaking to someone and saying, O child, you should carefully take some water from the altar of Lord Hari and sprinkle it on the heads of the devotees, because that water is as sanctified as all the water contained in the numerous holy places of pilgrimage. Text 85 to 86. The glories of Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita are loudly proclaimed in all of the scriptures, even if one's unable to count the waves of the ocean. So even if one were able to count the innumerable waves of the ocean, right, it would not be possible for him to estimate the glories of Charanamrita. One should put Charanamrita and Tulsi in a conch shell and offer it to the Vaishnavas while chanting the appropriate mantra. Of course, one should himself not fail to also drink the Charanamrita, right? So here it says, the glories of Charanamrita placed in a conch shell, text 87 to 88. From Skanda Purana, in the conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada, it says, the benefit of performing 100 Chandrayana vratas, right, fasting vratas, can be obtained by one who places Lord Vishnu's Charanamrita and Tulsi in a conch shell and offers it to the exalted devotees. A person who sprinkles Lord Krishna's Charanamrita that have been kept in a conch shell on his head will become renowned as an introspective sage. A person who takes Krishna's Charanamrita, which is kept in a conch shell on his head, right? On his head, right? So if he takes that and he sprinkles that on his head, that water from the conch shell, Krishna's Charanamrita from the conch shell on his head, he becomes an introspective sage. Similarly, in the Padma Purana conversation between Devaduta and Vikundala, it says, there's no doubt that one who drinks the Shalagam Shila's Charanamrita after placing it in a conch shell becomes relieved of the sinful reactions for killing millions of living entities. The Agastya Samhita, which again is mostly about the worship of Lord Rama, right? The Charanamrita of Shalagam Shila is full of fragrance because it contains tulsi leaves. Those who drink it will no longer experience birth in the material world and thus drink their mother's breast milk. So again, it's said that one won't take birth again. One won't have to feed at the mother's breast again in another birth. Again, it says the purity of the water that has washed Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, as well as his devotees' feet, is equal to all the sacred water on earth, and as such, one is prohibited from washing his hands after drinking it. Right? Do you understand? After taking Charanamrita, one is forbidden or prohibited to wash his hands after drinking it. This is the pramana right here. Sri Vishnu Vaishnavanam Cha. Pavanam Charanodakam. Pavanam means completely pure, absolutely pure. Charanodakam, the water from washing the Lord's feet. Sarvatirtha Mayam Pitva. Right? It is equal to all the water from all the Sarvatirthas, all the holy places. Right? Kuryad Achamanam Nahi. After which we should not do Achamanam. Right? That's the pramana. Okay. So, of course, if your hand is sticky from that sticky type of Charanamrita, then we have to wash the hand. We can do that. Or we can simply, put it on the head like that. But in any case, if it's simply water Charanamrita, we should definitely follow this rule and sip the water and not wash the hands afterwards. It's forbidden in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Right? So what was that? That was verse 991. You can quote it to anybody. So, and then Lord Shiva in Skanda Purana is going to say this. Sri Vishnu Padodakam Pitpa Paschad Asuchi Shankaya Achamati Chayo Mohad Brahmaha Sa Nigadyate. Okay, if out of ignorance, see, now you're not ignorant. Now I just told you that rule. If out of ignorance one washes his hands after drinking Lord Vishnu's or a Vaishnava's Charanamrita, right? If you wash the feet of a Vaishnava or the Guru and you take that Charanamrita, if one washes his hands after drinking Vishnu's or Vaishnava's Charanamrita, considering them to be contaminated, he incurs the sin of killing a Brahmana. If I drink the Charanamrita of the Lord, then I think I have to wash my hand. Why do we wash your hand? You wash your hand because you think your hand is contaminated. If you think like that, I have to wash my hand after taking Charanamrita of the Lord, or even of a Vaishnava, like that. He incurs the sin of killing a Brahmin. It's a sin. Those two verses, 91 and 92. Right. That's the pramana. Text 93. In the Shruti, in the Vedas itself, it is said, the Supreme Lord and his lotus feet are pure. The water that has washed his lotus feet is also pure. There is no need to perform achamana after drinking it, because it has been declared to be as good as somaras. Somaras, in the Vedic scriptures, what they do is they say there's different ceremonies, different sacrifices for offering this somaras, which is a juice which is made from crushing a plant. You take the plant, soma, which is a creeper, you take it and you crush the plant and you make this juice, and then you mix the juice in with flour and you make some cakes, and then that cakes, they also become fermented, and they make juice out of that, which is called somaras, and that juice is offered with a spoon into the sacrificial fire in a ceremony called Agnistoma. There's several different soma sacrifices, but basically Agnistoma to Lord Vishnu, you offer the sattvic intoxicant. At the end of the ceremony, the Brahmins and the Yajamana, the person who paid for the sacrifice, all get to take one drop of this soma and drink it. They have to, because it's an intoxicant, they have to shave their heads and faces and take bath with their clothes on, change their sacred threads after they do this. But because they're considered to be contaminated, because they've taken an intoxicant, but because it's a sattvic intoxicant, they're allowed to take it. So this is this description that says that this Charanamrita of the Lord is just like the somaras. It's equal to the somaras, that sattvic intoxicant which is spoken of in the Vedas, right? Like that. There is no need to perform achmana. Na tatpana. Na tatpana. He's not going to sit achamaniyam. Na tatpana afterwards, right? Okay, so again, this is the third 1, 2, 3 slokas in a row, and it says that this one is quoted somewhere in the Shruti, which means in the Vedas itself it said this. It has to be accepted because a Vedic rule has to be accepted immediately because the Veda is considered swata pramana. It is self-proof proof, right? You don't need any other proof to prove the Vedas, right? So it's the Vedas, right? So therefore, we understand from these 3 verses that one cannot or should not wash his hand after taking Charanamrita. Prabhupada and Sanatana Goswami are saying it again and again, right? So it's a very important point. So text 94. Also, in the Garuda Purana, here's another verse. One who, out of ignorance, washes his hands after drinking Lord Vishnu or a Vaishnava's Charanamrita is branded as the killer of a Brahmin. So, 4 in a row. Let's see what it says in text 95. After drinking Charanamrita, that was mixed with sandalwood paste, flower petals, and rice paddy, and placed in a conch shell, one should put it on a stand in front of the Lord, right? So after you finish doing this, you've taken the Charanamrita from the conch shell, and you've sipped it and you've touched it to your head. So after you finish doing that, right, you should then take the conch shell and put it on a stand, the conch stand which you had. You should never put the conch shell on the floor. So place the conch shell. One should put it on a stand in front of the Lord. One should never put the conch shell on the bare floor. Right? If you don't have a stand, you can have a tray. You can put it on top of the tray. But normally you need a stand. Because when we worship the conch, we have to worship the conch, but we also have to worship the conch stand. Right? There's different mantras to be chanted like that. So now we have Atha, a different subject. So this is the subject now is going to be about placing a conch shell on a conch shell stand in front of the Lord.